On this computer. Okay, we are recording, everyone. I am so excited. We have Brian Peskin here with us today. And so in preparing for this interview, I was sitting with my staff yesterday and I said, okay, everybody, what if I told you fish oils were bad? What questions would you have? And one of my young men that works for us, he said, well, I just wouldn't believe you. And he said, wait, what? And then they started asking all these questions. So I'm so excited to get some of these questions answered. But also, they didn't believe me at first. And that's exactly why we bring an expert to the picture. So again, thank you, Brian, for being with us. I want to tell you a little bit about Brian Peskin. He is a theoretical research scientist specializing in lipids-based pharmacognosy, a class of drug derived from plant-based sources, specifically seed oils. A notable benefit with this approach in the minimization and elimination of harmful side effects, which is what we're all trying to do, minimize all harmful side effects. He focuses specifically on the modulation of physiologically targeted essential fatty acids, or EFAs, termed the parent essential oils. We're going to be talking about these, I know, and their eicosanoid metabolites. He is a translational science expert with a long-term interest in diabetes and underlying pathophysiology. In 2002, he began extensive research on the relationship of PEOs and their metabolites to cancer and cardiovascular disease. Mr. Peskin's work focused on pathways that maximize oxygen delivery and blood flow to the human cell and maximizing tissue functionality. Mr. Peskin is a former engineer and founded in the field of life systems engineering science in 1995, bringing the cause-effect accountability of engineering to the life sciences. Focus is on supporting and optimizing the patient's natural physiologic process, not blocking or impeding metabolic pathways. Utilizing an interdisciplinary approach, the results are novel, highly effective treatments for specific chronic diseases and disorders across diverse patient populations. So it's just so exciting to have you with us today and to be able to pick your brain, for lack of a better way to say it. So I'd love to start off with two questions. And the first question is, why do you think it is such a norm for everyone to just say, oh, fish oils are good? So as soon as my staff said, oh, I wouldn't believe you, I said, well, do you know about omega-3, omega-6, or DHA? Like, they didn't know anything else other than their fish oils are good for you. And then the second thing is, what got you started investigating this?
Yeah, simple answer with the fish oil. It's called indoctrination. If you repeat the same thing 100 times, 1,000 times, you believe it, ready-made. I would even see articles coming out completely disproving fish oil did anything positive. And I'd go into the stores like Whole Foods and ask the people there, is there any decrease in fish oil sales? The answer was always no. So once the switch is on, where either the healthcare professional recommends getting something or the patient does it, nobody likes being wrong. And it's really tragic, because if I'm ever wrong, I'll change in a heartbeat. Before I open my mouth, I look at things 10 different ways from an engineering and mathematical perspective. So I'm usually, I've never been wrong in anything material in 25 years. And I typically lead the way, but before I open my mouth, I make darn sure with physiology and biochemistry. So if you look at fish oil, where did it come from? It came from spoiled fish they couldn't sell to the good restaurant. So my big joke is, in the nutritional field, look for a waste product and they sell it to the poor people that are desperate. I was around with the plant-based oils in the beginning when the fish oils came out, and was talking to the wholesalers, and I said, are they moving? Is anybody buying them? They would give me a look of disdain, unfortunate, and shake their head. No, nobody wants this stuff. 10 years, hundreds of millions of dollars, it's become the big thing. And unfortunately, the Cochrane Review, which is the best reviewer of studies in the world, looked at 22 out of the 15,000 supposed fish oil studies. Why there's 15,000, I'll tell you in a minute. But they could pick 22 that were decent. Out of the 22, not one succeeded at all. So the reason they do so many studies, because if you want to prove gravity, for example, I throw a brick off the top of the building, falls to the ground, of course, that's what gravity does. Doesn't go off to the sun. And then I go to another building and throw it off. Does the same darn thing happen? And the answer, of course, is yes. You only do it twice. So why 15,000? Well, it's because when you do studies, you have to know a little probability. So what you do is you have a 95% confidence interval, meaning if I do the same experiment 100 times, 95 of those times, I'll get the same type of results. 5% of the time, I will get a failure that I call success. So if I do 15,000 studies of something, 5% is 750. That means you have 750 fish oil studies that have failed, but they're told they succeed. And that's the big reason why. So I always look at failure in studies and multiply those by a factor of 10 because they're so much more important. If the thing works, it should virtually never fail. But fish oil does not extend life. It doesn't help macular degeneration. It doesn't help learning. It doesn't help Alzheimer's. It doesn't help heart disease. It does absolutely nothing. Now, the parent oils are very different. Fish oil is a derivative. That's DHA, EPA, and it comes from parent omega-3. There's two oils people need to know about. They're called the parent essential oils. And the reason it's essential has to come from food. So my body cannot make the parents. Parent omega-3, parent omega-6. Parent omega-6 is 10 times more important than the parent omega-3. And a great source of a supplement of those are organic seed oils, flax oil, sunflower oil, evening primrose oil, pumpkin oil, coconut oil. Olive oil, for example, has no parent EFAs to speak of. It's about 7% parent omega-6. Why do I even care about any of this? Well, you have to look at the cell, and you specialize in cell membrane maximization. If I look at any cell membrane, you have 100 trillion cells. Cell membrane is 50% fat, 50% protein. It's called the lipid bilayer. It's a double layer. And some of it's water-loving, some of it's oil-loving. And out of the lipid part, that 50% fat, 25 to 33% are the parents. Okay, parent omega-6, parent omega-3, a quarter to a third is that substance, which means it is the brick and mortar of every cell in your body, brick and mortar of every tissue, brick and mortar of every organ. If you have a weak cellular structure, I don't care what modality, what therapy you're doing, it will not be maximized. It will be minimized because this is the number one thing that we structurally need. Everything is in the cell membrane. First thing, hormones go through them. Got a circular membrane here. Picture insulin trying to get through a piece of plastic. That's a trans fat, interesterified oil. That is a processed oil that doesn't work. So picture that hormone trying to come in, a piece of plastic, of course, it bounces off. The reason they're processing the oils, they're called adulterated, only on the omega-6 side, is to get long shelf life. So you walk into a supermarket, you go to the fish section, typically there's a smell. That's even very, very cold fish. It's called oxidizing rancidity. The DHA EPA is rancid at room temperature, meaning it rusts at room temperature. So picture eating this stuff that goes bad at 70 degrees, we're at 98.6. So fish oil is antifreeze for a fish. The membrane is the intelligence of the cell. If I rip out a cell membrane, it's going to live for a few days. If I rip out the nucleus, it lives for months. So they were very wrong with saying the nucleus is the brains of the cell. It's not. It's the membrane. The other big thing in the membrane is the parent omega-6 dissociates at the same partial pressure as hemoglobin with the oxygen. So oxygen goes in and out of the cell, but it can also disassociate from the membrane. Nobody talks about that. But that is the biggest way to not get any infection and not get cancer. You know that, you're a physician, is oxygen kills everything. That's ozone therapy, but it has to go into the blood. Breathing it will do nothing. These oils are like a hyperbaric chamber 24 hours a day, 100 times more efficient than hyperbaric, because this lets the cell itself grab the oxygenation. So I started right at the cell membrane and looked at the work of Otto Warburg. My first question is, why the heck? Well, going back, Otto Warburg conclusively showed, because cancer is a big problem today, One prime cause of cancer, lack of cellular oxygen, not in the bloodstream. That's the pulse oximeter. You just put your finger in, it measures the oxygen in the bloodstream. As long as it's over 92, 93, nobody has a problem. If it's less than that, you have a disease or a very, very bad disorder. But that doesn't tell you anything about the cellular oxygen. That's only in the bloodstream. So when it goes into the cell, why the heck would it be impaired? Well, that's to get long shelf life. The food processors are changing the parent omega-6 cooking oil so it doesn't go bad. Because all the restaurants, especially the fast food ones, want a month before they have to change that oil. So they don't want it breaking down. So they make it like a trans fat into a esterified fat is processed, so there's no oxygen transfer. How can you prove that? Take a tub of margarine, put it outside in the garage, put the cover off. There's no mold, there's no fungus, there's no virus, there's no animal that will touch the stuff. You can come back a year later, it's the same thing. If you ask a plastics engineer, is this margarine, what's it like? They'll go plastic. So again, picture the plastic membrane. Everything is being impeded going in and out of it. Your hormones and oxygen. Otto Warburg, MD, PhD, most brilliant physiologist of the 20th century, Nobel Prize winner, conclusively showed lack of cellular oxygen, even intermittent, over an extended period of time is the prime cause of cancer. This was proven and verified 1953, 1955 by American medical scientists. They deprived heart cells over a 2-year period of oxygen intermittently. And when that happened, every cell became cancerous. On the cells they didn't deprive of oxygen, 0 cancer. And all you need is 35% decrease in cellular oxygenation, 35%. Now, Professor Lanz, 1990, showed the amount of oils you eat go in proportion to the cell membrane. Of course, the membrane is genetically composed, but if you're eating these oils, the body has to put them somewhere. It can't get rid of them all. And it goes into the cell membrane of every cell in proportion to what you're eating. Meaning, if I'm eating 50% junk food, I have a cell membrane that is 50% junk. What did I just tell you about Otto Warburg? If you have 35% oxygen decrease, you get cancer. Do we have an epidemic of cancer? Yeah. It's the number 2 killer. Number 1 is heart disease. That's oxygen too, I'll talk about in a little bit. But these oils are paramount to that. And if you just put them back in, and you can eat them in proportion, it's a winner.
Uh-oh.
Out of the cell membrane if you stop taking it. I get people from all over the world, physicians and patients.
Hang on 1 second. My the last thing you said cut out, and I'm going to I've got to flip something on the internet. Excuse me.
Take your time.
My goodness. Sorry about that. Like I said, okay. out in the country with some rain. So I'm sorry to ask you to backpedal just a minute. Mine cut out for just a minute. But I have to tell you, this stuff, it's so amazing and it is so complex. I was watching the Cellular Healing TV that you did with Dr. Pompa, and this section I literally rewound like 2 times so that I could like listen and take notes because it's really is amazing. So what you're also saying is like, I love the thing if you say if you eat 50% junk, then your cell membranes are 50% junk. Can you go back to that?
Sure.
Just like kind
of
like
tell me when.
A recap on that. Yep, ready to go.
So Dr. Lanz, Professor Lanz, 1990 did a great experiment with showing the proportion of junk oils you eat compared with the good oils goes into the cell membrane. Meaning if I eat 50% fast food, because it's 100% processed, unless you're going to a fast food eatery, which is almost non-existent today, you will have a membrane that's 50% deficient. What did I just tell you about Otto Warburg's proving? 35% oxygen transfer decrease, you get cancer. Now, it takes 8 or 10 years to get it. Cancer doesn't come overnight. And that's why no one is getting the results of not getting cancer. It's all tied to oxygen cellularization, and nobody is specializing in that. Except your group with Dr. Pompa and Cellular Healing. These people know it, but it is so few compared to the regular medical and healthcare profession. It's horrible. So all you have to do is eat it. It goes in, and boom. It's not, I can't eat any junk food. I can't have any fast food. I can't have anything. I have to have 100% organic. No, you can have 20% junk all day long. That means the cookies, the cakes, the baked goods, because look on the ingredients. Unless it says organic, it's processed. It is deficient and adulterated and non-functional to a certain extent. It may not be 100% non-functional, but it doesn't have to be. Remember that 50% threshold, and who even wants that? The more immunity I have, the better I am. Now we have the COVID thing going all around. Why don't the kids get it? Why don't other people get it? Because their immune system is up here and the viral load is down here. It's like right now, everybody has pneumonia in your mouth. People don't know that. They go, how can I have that? I don't have pneumonia in my lungs. I can breathe just fine. Of course you do. Your immune system's up here. The viral load is here. It's no issue. So I want my immune system up here, and anything is down here, meaning it's nothing. If I get close, now you're running the risk of having a problem. So I tell everybody to supplement with a blend of these oils. You need more of the omega-6 than the omega-3. And let me tell you why. The omega-6 pathways, you have the parent. And by the way, the average organ is 4-to-1. Parent omega-6 to parent omega-3, meaning your heart, your liver. The muscles, which is 50% body weight, so it gets a disproportionate amount, is 6.5-to-1. Your stored body fat is 22-to-1. So when you average it out, your whole body uses 11 times more parent omega-6 than parent omega-3, because everybody goes, oh, we're overdosed on omega-6, 12 times, 20 times. Number one, you're not 20 times overdosed. You can't be. Anybody that says that needs to go back to like 3rd grade and look at proportions. I hear this stuff. They make it up. You are 11-to-1. They all miss one adjective when they talk about omega-6 being detrimental, the adulterated omega-6. We need tons of it. So it's the brick and mortar, 11 times more parent omega-6 than parent omega-3. It also is the direct precursor, meaning the substrate of PGE1, prostaglandin series 1. It's number 1 because it is the strongest anti-inflammatory your body has. So with the COVID thing, they have what's called a cytokine storm. Well, PGE1 quiets it down. A storm is an overreaction. It's like if you have allergies, as you know, you have an overly sensitive cytokines and leukotrienes. This is what causes that. It's an overactive response. I had that 20 years ago. I don't now, but I was horrible in Houston. It's very, very sensitive to grasses. I'd be bedridden 4 times a year. Just 2 days, I couldn't even think. Once I went into Whole Foods, bought $10 worth of chicken. They screwed it up and had a bill for $100. Luckily, I was with a colleague of mine and said, wait a minute, what the heck are you doing? I couldn't think. It was that bad with the allergy 20 years ago. So that's all gone. And these oils are critical. So PGE1, the number 1 anti-inflammatory, arthritis, big one. Number 2, vasodilator. 70% of women have headaches. They're not getting the blood flow to their head. So this is a vasodilator. It makes the arteries naturally bigger. It's an analog of nitric oxide. Everybody talks nitric oxide from arginine. Yeah, that's fine, but most people get enough arginine. Extra is not going to do anything. These oils actually do. So PGE1 critical. The next thing is PGI2. That's called prostacyclin. Prostacyclin makes it where the blood platelets can't stick together. It's like 2 magnets with the same charge. Put 2 positives together, you can't, they push. So the blood platelets can't stick together, and you have an arterial wall and the blood's flowing through. It can't stick to the artery. And it's a cellular oxygenator. And the oils make the artery flexible like a balloon. That's the 120/80. So if your artery didn't flex at all, it'd be 120/120. You'd have like a straw. What do straws do? They crack. Gee, that's a thrombosis, that's an occlusion, that's a heart attack that you shouldn't be getting if you have a very flexible artery. Also makes your bones very flexible. Throwing calcium on the outside of them. My wife slipped, went face down. I couldn't stop her. I was 10 feet away on a concrete pavement. Hit her face, hit her nose. Nothing broke, nothing shattered. The physicians couldn't believe it. Because of these oils, they made everything
I've been taking, because this is what we're talking about, my friends. Let me click this for a second so you can see that. So this is Brian's formulation that we're going to just continue talking about and answer some details. But I have to tell you, I've been taking it, of course. I fell down the stairs last Sunday to the point where I was in bed all week long. And I have to tell you, I'm really disappointed. I have no bruising. Like, I have no bruising whatsoever. No, because I want people to be, oh man, that is really bad.
I know what you mean. We had a patient, if people send me an email from my website, I can send them a picture of a woman that fell off of a curb in Massachusetts in the snow, went face forward, boom, 86 years old, was pre-treated with the oils, and nothing broke, no concussion, out of the hospital the next morning, no pain pills, 45-day complete heal. The surgeons couldn't believe it. The EMTs go, they call it remarkable when they get a result they haven't seen. But 86 years old, nothing broke, no concussion, was taking the oils for, about a year before this happened. But you're exactly right. We have martial artists taking these because they get whacked and the bruising just goes away.
So in very simple terms, you're talking about it regulating the inflammatory responses.
Yes.
It's making the vessels more flexible. I mean, it's acting on multiple levels because, of course, we have membranes in every cell.
You've got it. So I don't know how getting these oils, you would get a heart attack outside of chemically doing it to yourself or walking through a radiation field or something very horrific out of the ordinary. I knew one guy that got one. He was a painter. He was breathing open cans of paint for 30 years and, with no ventilation. So I would have expected he would have gotten cancer, but he didn't. Yeah. And he has no problem now taking the oils. He has none. But PGE1 will actually reverse occlusions. This is Dr. Weiss in 1981 showed this and did a great paper on it. Dr. Campbell, 1976 on cystic fibrosis, did a great paper with how the omega-6 oils transfer the oxygen. So this wasn't really thought about or known, or people would say, it can't do that. It does do that up to double of a non-fully functional membrane. So it's absolutely incredible. So to get blood flow, and by the way, we have an Alzheimer problem. Most people are more petrified of getting Alzheimer's, dementia, even cancer. It's not beta amyloid. Beta amyloid, everybody's heard the term. They've looked at this for 25 years, gotten nowhere. Beta amyloid's a protein. What did I tell you about the cell membrane before? Half fat, half protein. With adulterated non-functional lipids in that cell membrane, it's falling apart. The protein's leaking out of the darn thing. And that's the amyloid. Now, scraping it off or getting rid of the amyloid will do absolutely nothing because that doesn't fix the cell membrane. Now, in every capillary in your brain, there's hundreds of millions. Capillaries are where the nutrition goes into the tissue and the organ and the oxygen transfer. Guess what a capillary is made of? 100% parent omega-6. So I was at a seminar on Alzheimer's. Is it a vascular disease, cardiovascular disease? And the answer by everybody was yes. So they got that part. They had no idea what the heck to do to stop it. And they say it's type 3 diabetes. And high blood sugar isn't good for anything. But none of them knew about the capillary connection or even thought about it. And to me, that was the first thing I looked at. What are these things made of? Because you have hundreds of millions. 100% omega-6. The next thing everybody needs to know is the mitochondria. This is where, of many things the mitochondria does, energy is produced. The inner membrane is called cardiolipin. Cardiolipin is 100% parent omega-6. Now, there was a study done recently in the Journal of Biological Chemistry. See, this is something physicians don't read. They read JAMA, New England Journal of Medicine, Lancet. They read the clinical medical journals. I read those too, but I also read the hard science, lipids, essential fatty acids, prostaglandins, leukotrienes, that sort of thing, Journal of Lipids, Journal of Biological Chemistry, that kind of stuff. So it's highly technical things. These guys looked at heart cells, the mitochondria heart cells. You'll love this. First, they looked at the blood of diabetics, and diabetics have elevated DHA EPA in the bloodstream. When the patients took fish oil, it elevated their blood levels to make them like a diabetic. Now, does it make any sense that you want to mimic a diabetic's blood chemistry? If you say yes, you are a complete moron. Because if you're diabetic, 25% have what's called diabetic foot ulcers. And we're working on that right now because I can make a big difference in the healing with all the pathways of this. Like you said, you fell and didn't have bruises all over the place. Well, diabetic foot ulcer is horrible. It's like a hole in your foot, right down to the tissue, all the layers of skin. They don't heal well. They always come back because the problem's never solved, and they're agonizingly painful. Just imagine you have a hole like this on the bottom of your foot. If I showed you some of these pictures, about a quarter of them end up, 20-25% end up with amputations because it's so bad. So the last thing anybody wants to do is mimic a diabetic's blood chemistry because you're on the road to disaster. The second thing they did was they actually said the Parent Omega-6 rescued the problems with the mitochondria. The mitochondria enzymes in the cardiac muscle. So the cardiac enzymes were only 50% functional. Now, if you have a heart that doesn't pump because there's no energy, that's called congestive heart disease. There's a rampant problem with that. So all the poor, more elderly, because the older you are, the more junk food builds up. Remember Dr. Lanza 1990? It's not because you get old, you fall apart and just get every disease there is. There's a root cause. That's functional medicine, as you well know, and that's all tied to these oils. So if you have the fully functional oil in the mitochondria, guess what? Your energy goes up. And lack of energy is America's #1 problem. The women, it's headaches, because look at the low-fat diets and then not getting the right organic oils. They didn't know about that either. Keto diets are not sufficient. They're much better than living on carbs, but a keto diet doesn't address the essential Parent Omega-6 or Parent Omega-3 at all. Eating a ton of saturated fat, it won't clog an artery. If you're wondering what clogs an artery, it's all the adulterated Parent Omega-6.
So can you touch on
85% of a clogged artery is adulterated Parent Omega-6 from the food processors. That's what's making it up. Of course, cholesterol's in there, but that's a healer. That's not the problem. It's the adulterated omega-6. High-resolution chromatography shows this. I looked at 2 different studies of it. They both said the same darn thing.
And if you're taking a fish oil, it's going in that category of those adulterated.
If you're taking fish oil, number one, it spontaneously becomes rancid. 24 times faster autooxidation than Parent Omega-6. So it immediately becomes rancid. If you look at what's called the pianisinin level of fish oil, even the best fish oil in the world, because everybody comes up, oh, Brian, my fish oil is better, is this, that. I said, I don't give a damn what it is. Once it's out of that fish, the pianisinin level is 19. It's called a secondary aldehyde. Aldehydes in the body are very far-reaching on a molecular level, destroy DNA, destroy everything. It's 19 in fish oil. You know what toxic is? 20. And they let every fish oil have that 19. So it is on the border of very detrimental. The parent oils are about 4 or 5. There's different ones. There's MDA. There's different secondary aldehyde, but they're all horrible. The parent oils do not have them. Big thing with fish oil, since you're on the topic, remember, the fish oil displaces the Parent Omega-6. That's the problem with it. So what's the dosage of fish oil you should be getting? I've never seen anybody even address this. Well, I'm a scientist, physiology and biochemistry. How much does a brain use a day? Because that's the highest depository of DHA. It's 14% DHA, but it's 10% arachidonic acid. That comes from the Parent Omega-6 side. To me, an engineer, it's the same order of magnitude. It's only 40% difference. It's not like it's 100 times different. By the way, in the brain, Parent omega-6 to parent omega-3 is 100 to 1. So the brain, I need 100 times more of the omega-6 side than the omega-3 side. There's not a lot in there, but the ratio is that. The average big-brained person, because they go out 2 standard deviations, it's a bell curve. So a big guy, 250-pound guy, 7.2 milligrams a day. 7.2 milligrams. The eye, retina is another big depository of DHA, so double it. That would be 15 milligrams a day. Let's look and see what a fish oil capsule is. 1,000 milligrams, it's about 60% DHA EPA. That's 60 compared with 15. That's a factor of 40 overdose, 1 capsule. So the average American is unknowingly overdosing fish oil, if they're taking it, by 20 to 500 times a day. Now, to put that in perspective, take 100 aspirin. Let me know how you're feeling in the morning. Don't do that, of course. I'm being very facetious because you'll be dead.
Right.
You'll bleed to death in your stomach. So we're getting physiologic overdoses of fish oil. Nobody's even asked, how much of this junk do I need? Number one, what is it really? It's antifreeze for a fish.
So the key is it builds up in our body too.
Absolutely. Your
So
body can't get rid of it. It goes as a proportion.
So
it builds up because the body can't get rid of it all. Another place it goes, the skin. Guess what the skin is? 100% parent omega-6. Every time I turn around, there's that omega-6 again. There's that omega-6 again.
Yeah.
By having the fish oil goes into the skin, guess what there is? Melanoma increase everywhere. Dermatologists don't have a clue. Cancer hospitals don't have a clue. Oh, use sunscreen. Half the cancers come in places that are covered anyway. It's not the UVA or B. It's the darn heat. Remember I told you fish oil spontaneously goes bad at room temp? Well, guess what happens when it's 100 degrees outside?
It's rancid.
And you get cancer. And there's your skin cancer right there. There's no reason at all to get it. Every time you turn around, it's the parent omega-6, parent omega-6. You need the 3 too, the parent. And that's called ALA, alpha linolenic acid. It's the technical name. But you need some of that. And here's how little of that's even needed. Even a cow living on grass. A grass is heavy parent omega-3. Most things are not, by the way. Seeds and nuts, almost none have omega-3. A walnut, for example, Seventh-day Adventists live very good lives. Oh, it's because of the omega-3 in a walnut. No, it's 5 times more parent omega-6 in a walnut than the omega-3. But they give big credit to the omega-3. So you need some of that omega-3 for structure, but it's very weak. With the PGE1 and PGI2 from the parent omega-6, there's no analogy on the omega-3 side that's anywhere near as potent at all. So the omega-3 side is 20 times less powerful than the fully functional parent omega-6. And everything that you ingest will displace the parent omega-6 because your body can't burn it all up. It doesn't use it as fuel. So these oils are precious. They make every tissue and every cell in your body. Your body is not burning it for fuel. That would be completely ridiculous. It doesn't. Burns carbohydrates as fuel. It burns saturated fat as fuel. Can even do a monounsaturated fat. But what's called polyunsaturated fats, which are the parent omega-6, parent omega-3, it does not. It saves those because they're too important.
So the buzzword that keeps coming to mind is ketones, and like we're trying to eat all these, MCT and good fats. So are you saying that like flax oil, pumpkin oil, like these things are not burned up, they're just more for our membrane?
Absolutely. The parent oils are for the membrane. Now, GLA, and that's an evening primrose oil, I like it because it bypasses what's called the delta-6 desaturase enzyme. So that makes the PGE1. So the parent omega-6, you have a couple things. PGE1 gives me the delta-6 desaturase gives me the PGE1. So you can do a trick with an oil that has GLA in it, you bypass that. Why is that a problem? Well, in diabetics, in cancer patients, in alcoholics, in anybody undergoing chemotherapy or radiation, the delta-6 desaturase enzyme is impaired. Now, it's not to zero. If it was zero, you'd be dead. But it's impaired. So to get 100% full functionality, I like a blend that has GLA in it to bypass that. It's a great trick. I'm not big on tricks when it comes to Mother Nature, but that's one thing that we can do to ensure full functionality. And the fish oil just does nothing with it. Here's why they came up with getting the derivatives. These are called derivatives. So GLA, arachidonic acid, DHA, EPA. A derivative just means it comes from the parents. So the parents is the fundamental thing, like mommy and daddy, and you have a kid. The kid is the derivative. It's nothing more than that. So the derivatives typically are cellular messengers. They're called eicosanoids. And they don't hit the bloodstream. They're very, very fast. They're extremely difficult to measure, but they're incredibly powerful. So you can look at the effects of them. So the parent omega-6, parent omega-3 is the brick and mortar. The derivatives are the signalers. And they do big things like making the artery expand. So it's telling the cell, be flexible. That's what I mean by a signaler. It's telling the cytokines that have an infection coming in from COVID or something to get it, but not get it too much, because that is too much inflammation. So the key is a quick inflammatory response. Like I take a knife and cut the heck out of myself. I'm going to bleed like the dickens. If I have no inflammation, I'm never going to get sealing of that wound. I'll die. So anybody that tells you you want no inflammation, again, needs to go back to a medical library like I did and spend about 5 years there. And by the way, I learned most of this from the MD Anderson Medical Library, University of Texas, MD Anderson. They were kind enough, 300,000 medical volumes, one of the top 10 medical libraries in America. They let me spend years there. And it was, my goodness, the science is here, and what everybody is saying is over here. Somebody's got to start talking about this and give the science. So I don't know if you've had a chance to read PEO Solution, but all of this science is in there, where I give it to you and I give you the quotes out of the medical textbooks. Of course, I translate the journals and the textbooks if it's too technical, but I give you the actual quotes so you know I'm not misleading you like most articles. And the paper never said any of it. So I look at every reference there is. I don't do references. If I see 3 references, I pull every darn one.
That's awesome.
So if I used to have to go to the medical library sometimes 3 times a day because I'd read something and, there's 50 footnotes or 100 and number 50 was this. They let me do it. But it's all science. And it's all metabolic pathways. So like with fish oil, tell me how it works. What is the metabolic pathway of fish oil? And the answer is there isn't any. The only thing I've ever seen anybody say, well, it displaces the bad omega-6. Well, by displacing the bad omega-6, it's going rancid everywhere. And you can prove this. It's called lipofuscin. That's an age spot. So Dr. Rowan, who's my co-author in PEO Solution, Raw Foods Vegan, sent me this. They gave monkeys the oil that was rancid, the fish oil. They got lipofuscin everywhere, and there was no amount of antioxidant. So what you need to know is if you're taking an overdose of fish oil because it goes rancid right away, all of your antioxidant, they're leaving everything. The first place, the brain. That little bit of DHA, remember it's 7.2 milligrams a day? Its half-life, meaning to get rid of half of the brain's amount, 2.5 years.
Oh, wow. So
you go, I ate 2.5 years ago. It's still in my brain? Yes. What does that tell you? We have the antioxidants to take care of it so it doesn't become rancid. Except nature didn't figure we would be so stupid to ingest fish. Now, here's what fish oil is. It keeps the fish's tissue fluid. If I throw you in 30-degree water, you're going to turn into a block of ice and die. It's called hypothermia. Everybody knows it. You can't stay in frigid water. So nature has 2 ways to go with a fish, a whale. I don't care if it's a mammal, what the heck. Long-chain fatty acids, which are these oils. So you could put them in a freezer. They don't freeze. Or alcohol. You could put vodka in the freezer. If you did the alcohol method, you'd have a drunk fish. So that's not going to fly. So it's the long-chain fatty acids. So it's antifreeze for a fish is its big function. Excuse me. Number two, is there a difference between a cold water fish and a warm water
Yes.
fish? A great journal article. They looked at it. 14 times
Oh.
water fish at 70 degrees compared with the tissue at 30 degrees.
And I heard
Now,
you say
what are we doing?
14 times. Can you repeat?
Times, not 14%, 14 times less DHA, EPA in the tissue of the warm water fish.
That is amazing. I'm sorry, I'm going closer to my computer router because it's just not being awesome right now. So
I had that
what
the
is
other day in mind.
one
So
of-
think about it. 14 times less to a warm water fish. We're getting 20 to 500 times, and we're at 98.6. In case
Yeah.
you forgot what temperature.
So what
We're
if
not at
someone-
room temperature. We're at 98.6. We're ruining this oil all over the place, and all the antioxidants from the brain into the bloodstream. So you're not doing your parents, your elderly people you know any favor. That's one of the reasons why they're so dementia, because they're having all of this stuff that's going bad from fish oil. I believe it's the #1 supplement in America, which is incredible, absolutely unbelievable. It's all indoctrination. It's just like communism and socialism is wonderful. Well, show me one country where it's worked. Well, there isn't any, but it's still wonderful. Okay.
So what can someone do that has taken it for the last 5 to 25 years?
Stop it. Stop it cold. 18 weeks, it's gone. I get emails
18
from all
weeks?
over the world with people doing this. And they go, my goodness, I'm so much better. And let me tell you what fish oil also does. It acts as a long-term steroid. So if you're taking a NSAIDs, which is a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, or if you're taking a steroid, it shuts down the EFAs and the derivative pathways. So it stops all this. So a steroid actually kills you long-term. That's why any doctor says long-term steroids, never, maybe a month or two, and get the heck off of them. Ask them why that is, because you're going to die long-term. They're horrible, but fish oil acts as a long-term steroid. That's why I've had people, when I lecture, dermatologists always go, but Brian, I got some people that skin conditions clear up well. And then a dermatologist sent me an email and said, I'll tell you why. It's acting like a steroid. So the answer is not take the fish oil. The answer to any dermatologic issue, remember I told you all the skin, Paran Omega-6. Also your fingernails, 100% Paran Omega-6. The inner lining of your artery, it's all Paran Omega-6. That's the enema.
So I think I'm going
100%
to
of your
take some.
capillary, Paran Omega-6. So that is the key. If you start putting fish oil in and displacing the Paran Omega-6, you're going to have one ailment after another.
I'm going to take some pictures of some, cool little age spots that I have and sunspots and just see how they
They'll
change.
go away.
So,
Slow, but they will go
Yeah.
away.
So let's say someone just stops taking their fish oil and let's say they switch to the pure form. Did you mention about how long it would take for the body?
I can't recommend any specific brand. I just tell people what a supplement needs to be, because I talk
Gotcha.
about disease prevention like this. So you need more Paran Omega-6, obviously, than Paran Omega-3. You need GLA. You really need a hard gelatin capsule, not a soft one like fish oil. I can't believe they're doing that. So the oxygen transfer is cut down. A hard gel cap is closer to glass. It's not, of course, but it's much closer than a soft gel cap. They're horrible for oxygen permeability. It's like the fish oil people know it's horrible and don't even care to protect it in the
I
right.
don't want you to get any of it. So,
It's horrible. You need the pianisinin to be low. You need peroxide value to be low. I don't care much about that. I care about the secondary aldehydes, and nobody will talk about that ever. No fish oil company will talk secondary aldehydes at all because they know the answer. And in PEO Solution, I talk extensively about this.
Awesome.
You will be amazed.
Well, and I love when you say that you feel like it's your passion to give physicians the medical research that they've never seen before. And
right. I don't want to waste your time with regurgitating the garbage you know. There's so much in the hard science journals because they're not clinical. That's what I try and give you. So before people and healthcare professionals knew this, they're not responsible. And I've said this in lectures. Once you hear this or read it, now you are responsible. And if you can continue to recommend fish oil, you're guilty of nothing less than medical malpractice. When you put it all together, I've written extensively on this. I've actually had papers retracted because the fish oil people were so powerful and the journals were so scared of them. It's like censorship. So don't think there's no censorship in medical publications.
Yeah.
I had journal articles that were phenomenal. One was an extensive review of this. I could correlate fish oil to increase prostate cancer, to increase skin cancer. Actually, in the 70s, they did a study, I believe it was Norway, phenomenal with cancer registry. Nobody had cancer when they started. They looked at both men and women taking the fish oil. The women actually had a factor of 3-fold carcinoma, which is skin cancer, very bad skin cancer.
Wow.
Compared to the non-fish. This got completely hushed up. Again, they're an island, they're a fishing place, so they didn't want anything to do with that. But it went through the registry. Every test for cancer was pathologic, which means they took tissue samples. It wasn't a guess. It was the most meticulous study you could ever do for cause effect, 3-fold increase. And it was about 12 years, and every cancer goes through their registry. Similar to what we have in America, but I don't know if it's even that tight.
Wow.
But in Norway it was, and they did not want to see it, but nobody published it at all. So anybody thinking fish oil is wonderful and the Eskimos have fish oil. No, they don't. Once again, they're eating mammals, seal, caribou, whale. That's not a fish. They're not eating fish because it's so cold there. If they can't fish, they got to get something big. Reindeer.
Yeah.
I've seen
Wow.
articles about this completely destroying that garbage. That was one of the reasons the fish oil came out too. Well, look at the Eskimos. They don't have cardiac problems. Have you looked at their skin and seen what their skin looks like? What do you mean there's not cardiac problems? Their skin on an Eskimo is horrible as they age. It's going to look the same inside. The records just don't show it. So you can't go by a culture that you've never been to. That's why I like looking at physiology, biochemistry right here. I don't care about what they supposedly eat in Okinawa because I could mislead you and you're not going to know because you haven't been there. I've been to the Orient. I've been to China. I've been to Singapore. I've been to Thailand. And I see what they eat. They're not living on carbs. We get highly misled. Okinawa, their main food is pork. It's not carbs. There was books about that, how wonderful they are over there and saying this complex carbohydrate. We get misled. And there's no way anybody can tell. This is my job. This is all I do. I stay in
your lane.
Essential oils and their long-chain metabolite. This is all
That's
I do.
awesome.
It's not a hobby. It's not a pastime. It's not for amateurs. And I've never been defeated in any type of debate, in any type of lecture. But people
And
need
this
to
is
understand
why we love having people like you on our team, because there's no possible way we can spend these hours and years and years to study these things. So one of the things, of course, that we teach our patients about is the membrane and the sensitivity to hormones. So when we're talking about hormone balancing, I mean, of course, thyroid, the sex hormones, and then, of course, insulin, leptin, things like that. So I know a lot of your research, did it start with kind of investigating diabetes and insulin resistance? Can you talk a little bit more?
Yes, that's where I started to. Yeah. I did try and fix a pancreas. I failed. I couldn't do it. But nobody else in the world can do it either. So I don't feel too terrible, but I can make the insulin you are producing more effective because the membrane has higher functionality.
So when you're taking better oils, the insulin's more effective to getting into the cell.
It's more effective, and also you will get decreased neuropathy and retinopathy. Those are two conditions. Diabetic, typically they go blind or have bad impairment. They get macular degeneration, eyes bleeding all over the place because of the leaky cell membrane. And in the feet, it feels like either nothing or 10,000 needles going into your foot. So if you see somebody wobbling, they have neuropathy. They can't feel where the heck they are. And those are major, major problems with diabetics. Those will be minimized with these oils because the oxygenation helps with that pain, and the oils actually make the nerve. So yes.
And that's awesome. Of course, being sensitive to every hormone is going to improve
Yes.
things. And I specifically take care of a lot of pregnant ladies. Could you speak just briefly on that?
Absolutely phenomenal for them. Nature is very, very tough. So what happens is nature is going to give a woman's EFAs, the parent essential oils, to the kid. Doesn't care about you. Spit out the kid, you're
Yeah,
gone.
right.
This is why women are so exhausted after they have the kid. They have stretch marks all over the place because they're not getting these oils, and they're all wasting their time with prenatal vitamins they don't even need. The oils are critical. So what you get is, we monitored this. Number one, increases the heck out of fertility. We've had numerous women that can't conceive. Guys' sperm counts are down by half compared to 1950, by the way, because they're not getting these oils. So if you have the oils, the woman's energy stays phenomenal. Hormone balance is much better. The kid comes out, does not have the skin issues most babies have, the dermatitis, the all kinds of stuff that they have. The coughs that they normally have aren't there. It is the baby from heaven. Absolutely. Also, hopefully they'll breastfeed. The oils are phenomenal for that too. You don't need to be supplementing with fish oil. Even a baby at 6 months produces its own DHA. This was all hushed up. They didn't know this.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
the baby can't produce any. Now, when the mother's pregnant, her DHA production, because remember, I told you the brain is 14%. So you go, where the heck's that coming from? He's saying I don't need to be eating fish oil. Blah, blah, blah. Well, in the 50s, they never had fish oil. Maybe they had fish on Friday or something, but there was no supplement of fish oil. I don't know of anybody with cognitive damage, with visual acuity problems or anything back then. It didn't exist. So this whole thing, you need the oil from a fish to be okay. It's crazy. So the mother's hormones will make the DHA increase temporarily. So
Okay.
you don't have to worry about the baby having enough. Do not waste your time with fish oil with a pregnant woman. The
Great.
studies that come out, there's no improvement in the kid whatsoever. You need the parents. Remember, that's the brick and mortar. And nature is going to take all of yours out. So you get so many women today that are exhausted for at least a year. Remember, the
Yeah.
parent omega 6, you shouldn't have any stretch marks. The skin should stretch like a balloon. And it will if you get these oils when you start the pregnancy. You can take them
So,
anytime, but it should be when you start. And you should be
so
taking extra if you got a kid too.
okay, that was actually my next question, personal question.
Yeah,
I do plan on growing at least one more human, and so when I'm doing that, like my choice, of course, right
double,
now is the pure form. Do I need to double that when I'm like
double.
when I'm pregnant?
Absolutely. Whole time.
Okay,
Double.
great,
The
great.
only issue you could ever have in a supplement, I like about 2.5 to 1 parent omega 6 to parent omega 3. If you get too much of the parent omega 3, you'll get bruising. So you were telling me how you fell and you didn't get all the bruising. Well, if you smack into something, you have too much omega 3, you'll get a hematoma. That's that black and blue mark. Your gums will bleed when they shouldn't be. Your nose will
Okay,
bleed, doing nothing. Not saying if you don't just
yeah.
smack it, of course it's going to bleed. If I take a knife, it's going to bleed. But just smack it shouldn't do anything. But 2 times the dosage, no issue at all
Okay.
day long.
So,
And
and
you will be amazed at the results.
well, I will definitely fill you in on those results one day.
I already know the
um,
answer.
so
Please feel
so
free to, but I know the answer.
Yeah. One thing that everyone is always asking about is the new oils that are just becoming more popular because people have learned, okay, vegetable and canola bad, giving us cancer. So what about the
Yeah, canola
safflower
is
and the
bad. Canola, by the way,
palm?
canola
Well,
oil is horrible. Stands for Canada Oil. They came in and kicked out in the movie theaters all the coconut oil. Coconut oil is great. It's a saturated fat,
yep.
93%. Why do I want a saturated fat? Because it can't screw up with anything. It's saturated, so the bonds are such no oxygen can come in and screw things up. I want a saturated fat to fry in, or a monounsaturated like olive oil can take, good sauteing heat. Um, they screwed up everything. Canola oil is rapeseed oil. Rapeseed oil is the basis of something called mustard gas in World War II. It's a neurotoxin. Do you really want to be eating that? And then the odds that you get organic is going to be almost nothing. But You don't want that oil. Same thing with soy oil. Soy is food for a pig. I lecture extensively in Iowa. If you've ever smelled soy, you will get sick to your stomach. They have to process the heck out of it, get all the taste, all the smell out of it. It is literally food for a pig, and it's a major endocrine disruptor. So I hope no women are eating soy protein or anything to do with soy. It really is for the farm animals. It's okay for them, but it's not okay for a human. What other oils do you like?
Well, safflower and sunflower, those are in
Those
a
are
lot
fine.
of things.
Those are fine to cook in. Those are fine to eat with a salad dressing. Make darn sure organic.
Yes.
What you want to do is spend the money on organic, anything that's fat-based. So the cooking oils, the eggs, the bacon, the butter, the cheese, milk, cream. I don't drink milk because you don't need the carbs, but heavy whipping cream. My wife likes whipped cream all the time in the coffee. That's fine. With, heavy whipping cream is just fine. Even half and half is pretty darn good. And it doesn't need the homogenization process.
Okay.
That's not good. So anything with fat is where you want to spend the money on organic.
So what about palm?
Palm oil is fine. Again, that's more of a saturated fat.
Okay.
That's great. Red palm oil is very sustainable.
Man,
Red palm oil is good. If you get it on you, it'll turn red. But palm oil is great. Coconut oil is great. It can even be refined as long as it's organic. The refining processes are not chemical. So they're anything but chemical. You could steam. There's different things they can do. As long as it's not chemical, it doesn't change the properties of it. So you don't have the problems like hydrogenated oil. So as long as it's organic, you're okay. But coconut oil is great. Ghee is great. That's clarified butter. Anybody from India, I use that all the time. Regular butter is fine too. Organic, of course. You can fry an egg in. You can use olive oil, organic or at least extra virgin. If you get it really from Italy, they're not big on chemicals over there. But all the oils over here, those crops, heavy pesticides.
Yeah.
You don't want that. You're trying to detoxify people. The last thing you need is a supplement or a food that's killing you. And the oils all are.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've gotten so much information, and I have to tell you, the more that I listen to you talk, the more questions I even come up with, but I'm not going to steal too much more.
I try and answer everything in the books. I don't do a lot of lecturing. I tell people I spend my time writing the books. So it's all there. And the patient, and of course the physician too, can make this information theirs. You hearing it from me, you go, I can't believe what I'm hearing. All I expect people to go is, gee, sounds very confident. He's quoting medical textbooks, textbook of medical physiology, basic medical biochemistry, Harvard's Illustrated Biochemistry, medical journals that very confident, but I don't know if it's true or not. When I write and you read this, you know more about how your car works than how the average person works. And if you're not willing to spend a mere 6 or 8 hours learning how you work, then, there's nothing to be done. You will not have a nice death. The way it is now, we live longer, but you live diseased and in a nursing home in living hell. And if you want that,
it's hard.
Don't spend 8 hours. Don't get a book like PEO Solution. Don't do it. But when it comes time where you are decrepit, I can't bring you back. You're too old. You're too far gone. It's like I can't bring a house back if it's 3/4 burned. Even if it's half burned, I can't bring it back. It's too far gone. 10% you can. So the thing is, don't wait till it's too late, because nobody values their health until it's gone. Then it's the biggest thing in the world, but they don't give a damn when they're typically 30 or 40. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you're right on. I love all the things you're saying. I didn't mean to cut you off at all, but one thing that I was just super impressed by with a lot of the papers that you sent me to read, and I know it was chapter 11 of the PEO Solutions, is all about athletes and just the improvement in the recovery. And then there was one study, it literally made the mice
fish oil, by the way, is horrible for an athlete. Yeah, fish oil.
It made them run faster with good oils. I was like,
with the parent omega-6, yes.
This
is
amazing.
known also, another big thing with this formulation is it naturally fulfills the appetite for the carb cravings.
Now that is amazing.
No, it is. When I was looking at this, I'm starving. I was looking at oils because I knew the cell membrane. I knew of Otto Warburg's work. So I was looking at oils because they make cell membrane. And I was screwing around with different formulations. How do I know what to do? 10-1, 3-1, 1-1, more 3 than say, at the time I really know what to do. So I had one. It was about 1-1, which isn't the best. And I told people, just go to the fast food restaurant. I don't care what the heck it is. Bring it back. I'm starving. And I took some of this oil. Half an hour later, I'm not hungry. Man. So here's what's happening. Your body is sensing fats. It doesn't sense protein in the least. How can I prove this? Take 8 egg whites. Get rid of the yolks. Make the egg whites. Cook them up in the pan. Don't use any butter because you're putting fat, or use very little. Eat them. You're starving. It's only the fat that fills you up. Carbohydrates don't do it, because the more carbs I have, the insulin response, the more I want. Bet you can't eat just one cookie. Bet you can't eat just one slice of pizza. Bet you can't just have one piece of cake. Of course you can't. So the more I eat, the more I crave. These oils come in. It's like nature goes, you gave me what I'm looking for. If you don't get these oils, all nature can do is go, make the guy hungry again. So it's eat, crave, eat food that doesn't have these oils. And I'm a human billy goat. And then what you got from that was the nutritionist come out, you need 6 or 8 small meals a day. Utter moron. Your pancreas is designed to produce insulin twice a day. That's it. We have something called an epidemic of diabetes. They're overtaxing their pancreas. It doesn't store much of it. If you're eating more than 2 meals a day and a carbohydrate-based snack, you're in trouble. You will be, get a dartboard. That's what I tell everybody. On the bullseye, get a picture of yourself, put it there, write diabetic time bomb, because in 20 years, you will be diabetic. And you don't want that. You don't want to be eating insulin. Insulin causes scarring. You don't want it. Insulin is not a good hormone. We have 1 teaspoon of sugar in the bloodstream. That's it. The average American today is eating close to 100. Where's the other 99 go? Fat. Insulin is a fat storage hormone. Textbook of Medical Physiology, you've probably gone through the whole thing. It's the #1 physiology textbook in North America, and Canada. 19 editions of it, maybe 20 now. It is the standard. They call it a fat storage hormone. So anybody telling you to live on carbs. Now, there's glycemic carbs and there's non-glycemic carbs. I can go on and on, because starting with the oils, it leads to everything else. Why are you craving this? And then doctors asked me to write what's called the 24-hour diet. That's a book I did with scientifically, how do I tell somebody what to eat? And I call it 24-hour diet is because every day, am I going to gain weight? Why the heck would I want to gain weight? Well, say I'm on a trip. I'm on trips a lot lecturing. The only thing you can do is eat. So I have to know if I'm going to gain weight. And then if I gain it, I want it gone within 2 days. So how do I dump it? And then how do I stay at 0? For example, with carbs, complex carbs that are non-glycemic is like celery. Lettuce, it's all water. Lettuce, for example, 93% water. So it's a water diet. So there's some great tricks, and again, for the diabetics, but if you care about health, PEO Solution, it's on my website. And if you care about diet, I want to dump weight because everybody does, and keep it the heck off. Scientifically, you don't need willpower. You don't need exercise. Exercise has not been real successful. My joke is, well, if I don't gain the weight, I don't need to be a rat in a treadmill. This is what happened. By the nutritionist telling you eat 6 times a day, you get fat, then you go run for an hour, and you couldn't burn off the fat that you were eating the excess carbs for. So
it's a vicious cycle.
Exercise makes too many people fatter faster. You like that one? Exercise to make you fatter faster.
Yeah,
and that's why it was a failure. The 10,000 steps a day program that America had, utter failure. Didn't work at all. So we get completely misled. I mean, I could go on and on.
Well, and of course, because it's all the
but
inflammation
obesity is
too.
so bad, and it's right along with the diabetes. So you can stop all this. Nobody should be diabetic. Nobody should have cancer. Nobody should have heart disease. It's as simple as that. If you know the physiology and biochemistry, I can prove it. And when I say nobody, that's 99.9. Maybe one person in 1,000 is just something screwy. But I care about the other 999. I talk about the general population, not a specific genetic problem. There's not many of those, but there are a few. Or,
Yeah.
a disorder. The average person has no genetic problems at all. They're misled with this. And by the way, everybody is not, quote, different. That's the great one when you know nothing. Well, are you so different? I can put you under the dirt and you can breathe like a termite. No. Can I eat grass like a cow? No. So I guess we're not that different. I need to be above ground, breathing the same air you do. I need water every day. So we're not really that different. I don't care about your eye color or anything else. I'm talking about physiologically and biochemically. We're not different.
Yeah.
So we're much more alike than we are different. Of course, there's small differences. Some people are smarter than somebody else. Some people are a better athlete than somebody else. So there are those differences. But as far as how we work, we're all the same. It's like the engine is all the same in every car. Some are just higher performance than others for different reasons. But it's the same method that's being done.
We always use that. We always use the car analogy when teaching people. It's like, okay, if you want to be a Ferrari, if you want to be an awesome sports car, you got to put good fuel in. So now everybody has amazing tools for, like which oils are good. And do you want to talk about the pure formulation? Otherwise, I'm going to talk about it in the email.
I can't talk specifically about any specific formulation.
Okay.
But what I say is for any formulation, you need more of the Apparent Omega-6 and Apparent Omega-3.
Okay.
You need an oil that has some amount of GLA. You don't need a lot because very little become derivatives. It's less than 1%, because we're on the topic of the parents become derivatives. And the reason they thought you need all this DHA and EPA is because they thought all the parents became derivatives. They didn't even look at what is in a cell membrane. The 25 to 33% is the brick and mortar. They didn't concentrate on that at all. They just looked at the other long chain derivatives. It's less than 1%. It's actually less than 0.1%. So you need very little. So some GLA, you want a nitrogen capsule, a nitrogen bubble, so there's no oxygen in the capsule. I like a hard gel cap. You want a low pianisinin level. Most don't publish this, but as long as there's no fish oil, you don't want any fish oil in the product. You don't want any soy in the product, or soy oil or canola oil. You don't want any of that. So as long as you meet those things, and it has to be organic. If it's not organic, that's not good enough. Cold press by itself is not sufficient. There could be still some kind of processing and some kind of chemicals in the growing condition. So there's a few specs, but if it's done right, and what I tell people is, if you don't think it's working, stop taking it. Biggest thing people get is, my energy is like this. I was up at 4 this morning. I mean, I go to bed at midnight. It's just boom, boom, boom. And take a couple of the oils before going to bed. Just imagine your kid has this kind of focus, like a laser. They don't have any attention anymore. You go to a fast food restaurant, and you tell them, this is to go. I want 3 things. And you give them the 3 things. Will there be anything else with that? I just told you 3 things. I'm done with the 3. Is that for here to go? Did you not hear a word that they have no attention? The brain's not working.
That's hard.
They don't have any attention today. None. And it's physiologic. I tell everybody, just like this road rage. I tell everybody it is physiologic. They're not getting blood flow to the frontal lobe. Remember, your arteries go with PGE1 and the direct Apparent Omega-6 making the arteries so it's flexible, so I can have that transport system going up there. Frontal lobe's not getting any blood or enough oxygen. You have this much empathy. That's why people are killing each other and could care less. There's a physiologic reason for this that no one's talking about, and it is physiologic.
Well, we're going to keep talking about it. We're going to share this information. We're asking everybody to share it with their families. We're also going to post your website down there where they can find this book and all the amazing research and love that you've poured into it.
A lot of papers there. If they look on the top, there's all kinds of articles, lectures. They don't have to pay a penny for any of it. If they want the book, that's in a different format, especially the 24-hour diet. But if they want to see papers on just how important these oils are and what major researchers say, they can see them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you again for your time. And